Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government.
Join us for a creative session with a professional crew of wood carvers. Watch as they transform an ordinary log into the most impressive wood decoration you've ever seen. This masterpiece isn't the work of just one carver. Many skilled artisans come together to bring this vision to life. They're turning this piece of wood into a stunning work of art. Just look at the intricate details. Isn't it simply a masterpiece? They've also created these breathtaking wood ceilings. The craftsmanship and artistry on display are absolutely inspiring. How awesome is that?
The world-famous violinist Itzhak Perlman came onto stage to perform a concert at Lincoln Center in New York. Perlman, who has suffered from polio since he was a child, slowly walked across the stage using his crutches. As soon as he sat down, he undid his leg braces, laid them down along with his crutches, and picked up his violin, began to play. After the first few bars, one of the strings broke on his violin. The audience assumed that Perlman would have to stop playing to replace the broken string, but he didn't. Instead, he waited a moment, closed his eyes, and signaled for the conductor to begin again. Perlman played from where he left off, but with a level of passion unlike anything the audience had seen before. As Perlman played, he was seen adjusting the 3 strings that he had left to create these new and amazing sounds. When he finished, the room was dead silent. Seconds later, the audience stood up and cheered. Perlman smiled, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and quieted down the crowd, and said, "Sometimes it's the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left." So how about you? Even with what's broken in your life right now, how can you find the strength to continue to make music? Let's play with what we have and appreciate the sound we can make. We may even find new strength and resources that we never knew we had.
Do you believe that hostile species don't exist, or they're just not a concern of ours at this time?
There could be worlds as backward as we are, but they're not here. The ones that are here, they'd be like Gandhi. No civilization that is capable of interstellar travel is allowed out of their solar system until they're peaceful. Otherwise, they're quarantined.
Yeah.
But actually, we have technologies that can go interstellar. We're not allowed to. And the reason is we're still savages. I mean, I hate to say it. We're considered barely a step out of the jungle. We're still killing each other, destroying the biosphere. So if you look at what a level 1 civilization is, we're level 0. A level 1 civilization is peaceful, using these technologies. They're not damaging their planet. And then they're allowed to go out in space.
If you find somebody who speaks well of you behind your back and talks to you to your face, those are the friends that are worth keeping.
Amen.
And if you can find somebody who can do both of those without flipping every conversation and making it about themselves, I think you have somebody who's worth keeping. But most people don't even meet one of those criteria, let alone all 3.
Most dis-ease of any type on the planet, whether caused genetically or accidentally, as you say, or for any other reason, most dis-ease in the body can, to some degree at least, be alleviated in most cases by thorough detoxification of the system and then the inputting into the system of the proper natural organic raw nutrients that will give the body the building blocks it needs to almost immediately repair itself, or at least very quickly. Many people on your planet have begun to realize this, that the only reason most symptomologies and diseases exist on your planet is because you have polluted air, polluted water, polluted food, and that the toxins are actually occupying the spaces in the cellular structures that are meant to be occupied by nutrients. And once the toxins are there, the nutrients can't be absorbed. They will simply pass right through your system and wave at the toxins on the way by.
Playing an instrument could rewire your brain faster than any nootropic. Here's the science. Music training creates more neural connections than any other known activity. When you learn an instrument, your brain forms up to 200,000 new synapses per second. This process engages over 40 distinct brain regions simultaneously, creating a symphony of neural activity. And musicians have 15% more neural density in key brain regions. Studies show musical training can improve memory by 40% and protect against cognitive decline. It's one of the few activities proven to enhance both hemispheres of your brain simultaneously. Start with just 15 minutes of daily practice on any instrument. Focus on learning new pieces rather than playing familiar ones. Even simple rhythm training using hand drums can trigger those benefits.
In America today, we have white supremacy. In the Torah, we had Amalek. Amalek is seen as the eternal enemy of our people, whose members found strength by making us suffer. Therefore, when the Lord your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, in the land that the Lord your God is giving to you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. Our rabbinic sages parse these sentences and derive two distinct meanings. Blotting out the memory of Amalek is a military command, literally to destroy Amalek. Now, facing today's Amalek, we are reminded that the Torah calls us not just to escape, but to extirpate Amalek. We are commanded to do real and literal battle against it. That means coming off the bench in the fight against white supremacy. It means putting our reputations and our money and our physical bodies on the line. But also so that we are ready to answer people with radically destructive and incoherent versions of history, so that we can counter white supremacists, so that we can counter Amalek and blot them out by retaining on our lips and in our records their history. By being bearers of history, we can help guide the future. Blotting out Amalek need not merely be about military conquest. Equally important is ideological victory. And nothing could more readily counter white supremacy than a Jewish community proudly helping our Muslim neighbors. There is nothing that undermines a white supremacist worldview more than diverse communities getting along and building together towards the future.
My dad said something to me years ago. He said, enjoy coming home, because there's going to come a time when you can't go home. I said, Dad, what does that mean? He said, well, the house will be there. The people in the house won't be there. This is that room. But that's the board. It's right in there, and Umberto's not sitting behind it. Michael Jackson was right there, in this room. And Springsteen did his part right over there in that corner. And Cyndi Lauper was right here. It's very special. I think about this room as my house. This is the house that We Are the World built.
single one of my patients, minus one, died. Every single patient. And the majority of these patients didn't need to be put on ventilators at all. They were using the ventilators as a first treatment. If you had a cough, they were putting you on a ventilator. This is one of the things that I recorded undercover, a doctor stating, yeah, we know that this is killing 100% of our patients. And, I asked specifically, well, if you know that it's killing 100% of the patients, then why not try something else? Why not do it? And then, their response is, well, it doesn't work. You literally feel like you're in the Twilight Zone at that point.
Majority of headaches, guys, remember this. There are no pain receptors in the brain. Brain surgery is painless, right? So the brain is not capable of sending a pain signal. So where does the signal come from? It comes from the covering of the brain called the dura. The dura hates two things. It hates being stretched and it hates being contracted. 85% of all the migraine sufferers that I've ever treated had a simple clinical deficiency in sodium. I have them drink salt water and their headaches go into permanent remission. Because we are not hydrated when we have water in our blood, we're hydrated when we have water in our tissues. And what determines whether or not water leaves the blood and enters the tissue is the sodium gradient. It's called osmosis. So if we actually restore the sodium gradient, that dura starts to relax and the pain goes away.
The Egyptian artifacts make absolutely zero sense, and archaeologists might just be afraid of being wrong. How is it the further back in time we go, the more advanced they get? Egypt is old, like really old. Egypt is so old that even ancient Egyptians studied ancient Egyptian history thousands of years older than them. When the Romans discovered the pyramids, they were older to the Romans than the Romans are to us today. Woolly mammoths still roamed the earth when they were first built. And of course, everyone knows that Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone, or hell, closer to you watching this video right now than she did to the construction of the pyramids. What's strange is that as time went on, their artifacts somehow got less and less advanced. The Egyptian Empire reigned for about 3,000 years, divided into approximately 31 dynasties classified into the Old, Middle, and New Kingdoms. When we go back to the first 5 or so dynasties, the Old Kingdom, we see impressive feats of design engineering unlike any other. And impressive is an understatement. These are straight up machine perfect down to the micrometer. Like this round vase, perfectly balancing itself dead center on a point no larger than the tip of an egg. Except this isn't your pottery class vase made of clay. It's granite. And granite is harder than steel. That's a fact. Here are the numbers. Here's another vase, slightly chipped, revealing its walls are as thin as a playing card. Another bowl made from diorite, a stone as hard or even slightly harder than granite, whose walls are literally 1/40th of an inch or 1/2 millimeter thick. We have no idea how to make granite pottery like this using known ancient methods, although high-tech machines could probably do the trick. But I don't think you realize how insane it is to suggest that this level of mechanical precision was achieved on granite using primitive tools softer than granite, the official claim. And these are just a few. There were over 40,000 of these artifacts found under the Step Pyramid of Djoser dating back to the 3rd or 4th dynasty, with some suggesting they're actually pre-dynastic, meaning they're even older, and the Old Kingdom Egyptians just inherited them from a previous civilization. Oh, we're in too deep now, Johnny boy. It's only in recent times when we finally analyzed them with modern light scanning technology that we found out how mind-bendingly precise they really are. They took a jar, did some measurements in a lab, and to this day, Egyptologists have no explanation for these results. The top of the vase was 3/1000ths of an inch away from being perfectly flat, something only possible with like CNC machines today. For reference, a sheet of paper is 7/1000ths of an inch thick. A human hair is 2 to 3. This thing was a literal hair away from being perfectly flat. The inside lip of the vase's mouth was 1/1000th of an inch away from being perfectly perpendicular to the top, which is a mathematically flawless right angle. And the entire vase base was 13 thousandths of an inch, which is still just like 2 sheets of paper away from being perfectly circular. These are legit CNC machine level perfections, mass produced over 40,000 times on a material harder than steel using copper and stone tools by hand. Oh, and they might be pre-dynastic, before copper tools were widely even used. I don't see an ounce of logic in that. Okay, maybe this one was just a fluke, right? A one-off perfect vase as a result of mass producing over 40,000 of them. So they took more into the lab and found even more astonishingly accurate measurements, revealing alleged machine-calculated mathematical use of pi, the golden ratio, and more, again to within thousandths of an inch of accuracy. That's like that much. Everything from the flatness of the base, the roundness, and even the uniformity of the thickness of the walls was nothing less of CNC machine perfection. Justifying this by saying they were just really skilled or they had a lot of time does not explain this level of precision with the known tools and methods at their disposal. There are even some vases that are reportedly made from corundum, which is magnitudes harder than granite and sits right behind diamond on the hardness scale. Although this one is for some reason debated, a lot of people claim it isn't made from corundum, but still others insist it is. A single one of these pots would have likely taken weeks, if not months, given modern explanations. Shouldn't there be evidence of their highly precise techniques all over ancient Egypt? Oh, there was this, a hieroglyph outlining the sculpting of an alabaster vase, one of the softest materials ever, softer than marble, and totally possible with their tools. But it's been proven that the technique outlined here would not work with granite. Sure, cutting into huge slabs using rough and painstakingly slow techniques using those tools might be possible, as we've seen them desperately trying to prove, but the force of friction required to achieve that simply would not be possible on small, delicate artifacts like these, never mind how machine accurate they are. Some of these vases are as small as a thimble, not even practical, and even harder to make, almost like they were just showing off, like, look what we can do. One theory is that these vases were spun on some sort of grinding tool, for which they have no evidence nor recordings of, but that's completely blown out of the water with the lug handles on the sides here. It's pretty obvious these wouldn't be possible from spin grinding. Absolutely no one can explain how these lug handles were made, which again, lab results showed that they too were perfectly symmetrical and level to each other to within thousandths of an inch. Later dynasties even tried recreating these jars, and although still impressive, are nowhere near the precision of the earlier ones. This level of advanced pottery is said to have reached its peak in the first 2 dynasties, and then poof, they just forgot how to do it, which leads people to believe these artifacts might be much older than anyone thinks. What if they inherited them from even earlier previous civilizations? And it doesn't end with these. There's also the schist disc, crafted from a single piece of stone. Tell me, what kind of stone can be shaped like this by hand? No one really knows what this is, said to be a bowl or a flower holder of some sort, even though it looks sort of mechanical. Recovered from a 1st dynasty tomb, and again thought to be even older than that. Then we get to the statues, and these somehow make even less sense. The face of Ramesses at Luxor. Several of these statues were made in honor of the pharaoh Ramesses. Engineer Christopher Dunn noticed that there was something off about these faces. They were perfect, but almost too perfect, and not in a human way. He took a photo of the statue head, made it 50% transparent, flipped it, and overlaid the left side on the right side. Doing this, he discovered the face was perfectly symmetrical. Centerline measurements confirmed this too. It's like half the head was carved, then copy-pasted to the other half. We see consistent eye-to-mouth profile ratios across all of these statue heads. Something that we'd likely do with like 3D modeling programs today, computer accurate precision. Same thing with the crowns on their heads, and this wasn't done just once but repeated among many statues. This isn't something that anyone could just eyeball, but experts insist they were all done by hand. Professional sculptor Mike Leckie even wrote in a letter saying that his modern diamond tools would have been well worn out before barely even starting to sculpt something like this out of granite, and states that it would have been borderline impossible to repeatedly achieve this level of accuracy time and time again using only the tools we have evidence of. What machining technologies did ancient Egyptians or even earlier civilizations before them possess that archaeologists just simply refuse to even consider?
Reality is not built from solid matter or empty space, but from something deeper, information structured by light. Beneath all we see, at the Planck scale, the universe is encoded in spinning quantum state vectors, or QSVs. These vectors are like tiny arrows of light, rotating at specific frequencies on qubits. the most fundamental units of information. When these vectors interfere with each other across space and time, they shape all that we know: space, time, gravity, mass, and even consciousness. In quantum information holography, a QIH, reality is a holographic projection of that interference. Quantum state vectors describe the angular frequencies of quantum information, and when two photons of opposite spin overlap within one Planck area, they form a perfect Venn diagram-like superposition. That overlap, the point of maximum information density, defines an angular frequency, encoding the qubits that determine the state of the next Planck moment. This superposition doesn't vanish. When the density of overlap exceeds the Bekenstein bound, a black hole forms. Pure light collapsed into a singularity. These black holes evaporate as Kugelblitzes, radiant flashes of maximum information and energy. They are not destructive anomalies, they are the very mechanism of projection. The singularity encodes every possible QSV. The event horizon, composed of quark-gluon plasma, receives, reflects, and integrates this.
You wake up in a house you're taxed to own. You buy a morning coffee and you're taxed. You drive to work in a car that's taxed. On roads that are taxed. Fueled by gas that's taxed. You arrive to work in a company that's taxed. In offices that are taxed. To receive a paycheck that is taxed. Then you spend your money, tax. You invest it, tax. You start making more money, more tax. Oh, and when you die, they'll tax you one last time. The game is rigged. Learn the rules or pay the price.
I have nothing against Taylor Swift. I've never met her. But she has a song, and in one of her songs, she goes, "Fuck the patriarchy." And all the women inside the stadium are saying, "Fuck the patriarchy." Men built that stadium. Men built the stage she's standing on. Men made the guitar she's using. And men went to work to pay for their daughters to go listen to this shit. What kind of father's even letting his daughter go? If my daughter said, "I want to go listen to someone say fuck the patriarchy," I say, "You better get a job."
Your journey that led you to this place of realizing there's more to history than I've been told.
The history that we've been told of these cavemen, they're chiseling with their copper tools, and as a contractor, in order to cut through some super hard stone, you've got to have diamond blades, and you're still having to do it aggressively. And sometimes these blades burn out. To get the perfect edge that we're talking about on some of these megaliths, you would have to have massive blades or some type of melting tool or something to get this perfect edge. And so when I started hearing what they were saying about these different tools and these different techniques that they're using, and I started referencing back to my experiences as a contractor, I realized it's impossible. There's no way. There's got to be another story. There's got to be another civilization possibly that is lost that we don't know about.
They send them to places like that all over the world, these biolabs.
What do they do with them in the biolabs when they receive them?
Either making the adrenochrome and also for making agents to, kill people with it. So, if I'm a half Irish, half Swiss, they can get my DNA code and create a cocktail and put it off in an airplane. And I'm the only one that dies of a heart attack in the plane. And then you watch a James Bond movie, you go, boy, that's really weird.
Wow.
It's suggested to me that this is probably why this world cabal is involved in all of this stuff. And it has a lot to do with the blood of our children. The public is now awakening to the trafficking, but it'll eventually lead you to other places like Epstein Island.
There you go. Make this a more cozy night. There you go.
Oh, baby, you don't have to do.
Oh.
Babe.
Water. What's so funny?
It's an
interesting. Somebody was flying by what they thought was a volcano in the 30s, and he thought, hey, wait a minute, there's 4 by 8 foot bricks. That's man-made. And it is literally the biggest pyramid in the world. It's bigger than the ones in Egypt, and it's in Guatemala. 20 years ago, I visited. I went down there with the archaeologist, a guy named Richard Hansen, and he's down there with his family. He's been working tirelessly for like 30 years, trying to extract this pre-classic city from the jungle. And there's not a bunch of tourists. All the pyramids in Tikal would fit inside the one big pyramid in El Mirador. It's a monster. And so that tells you that the pre-classic civilization was bigger and grander and more sophisticated than the civilizations that came after it.
You know, when the Mayans were running things, like, who could have ever thought when they had such an incredibly sophisticated society, unbelievable construction, that one day you just walk through there and there's nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing and nobody.
In fact, there's something, because
there's one temple called the Kailasa Temple, which is a very famous temple. It's built out of one rock. When I first saw this temple, I said there's no way that a temple could be built this way. This is just weird.
That is nuts.
The way you carve it, you have to scoop out the rocks. Like, for example, you see that kind of, like, they call it the pillar, but it should remind you of an obelisk.
This was all one rock. And they carved out all of the negative space to create this.
Yes.
There's nothing else like this on the earth, is there?
There are structures like this in India, but I think this was the first one that was created with this kind of negative, like top-down approach.
How long it took them to build it?
If you talk to mainstream historians or archaeologists, they're going to say it's about 1200 to 1400 years old, and they were carved using chisels, hammers, pickaxes, simple metal tools.
Would that have been possible?
We don't know. I don't think so. This is a thing that people fail to question, right? Just because I can, right? Just because you can make this table with simple tools, did you?
People ask me why their grandparents or great-grandparents never talked about the reset. Why don't they remember anything about it? Well, let me try to explain it. First, there were the Cabbage Patch Babies. Now, these weren't just toys, you see. They became a symbol of something much bigger, a massive repopulation effort after the reset. These babies, they weren't born the usual way. They were produced almost mechanically in large numbers and distributed through a cold, efficient system. Strange, isn't it? Brings to mind ideas like cloning, doesn't it? And maybe that's why today you see so many folks who just seem to go with the flow. No questions, no thinking. Did you know they say nearly half the population doesn't even have an internal monologue? Imagine that, living life with a quiet mind, just following along. Those babies, those orphan trains, they were shipped off along with abandoned children who had survived the reset, taken from their families, sent to faraway lands. Many ended up in America. And when they got there, they were given a new story, the official version of history. No elders left to tell them the truth. Nobody to remember how things used to be. It made them easier to control, you see, easier to accept the new narrative.
This man proved that our thoughts are not contained in our head. He conducted a scientific study in which he took cells from a human, put them in a petri dish, and moved them 40 miles away. Then they began to show powerful images to the person who had donated the cells. These included graphic images of war, destruction, comedy, humor, and sensual images. They showed him anything to elicit a genuine emotional response. And the instant that the person had the emotion, his cells acted as if they were still in his body having the same emotion. The cells 40 miles away showed the electrical activity of that response. Now, this should not be possible because this person's cells were not connected to his body since they were 40 miles away. So how did the information reach the cells far away? And the answer is that it didn't have to travel. The field is holographic. And what that means is that what happens in one part of the field influences other parts of the field in the same instant. Our thoughts are not contained in our head. Our thoughts are broadcast to the field. There's a new technology called magnetoencephalography. The probe doesn't touch the head. The probe is external. It's like reading your brain activity from outside.
it's possible that the Great Pyramid suffered some catastrophic event that caused it to stop working. In addition to hydrochloric acid, there are traces of sulfuric acid in the southern shaft. In the northern shaft, there's zinc chloride and ammonium chloride. These chemicals can create hydrogen without being mixed, but if you do combine ammonium chloride with sulfuric acid, you get more than a reaction. You get an explosion. Because of the structure of the pyramid, this explosion could be controlled. But there's evidence that an uncontrolled explosion may have occurred. In 2001, in the Grand Gallery, scorch marks were discovered in the ceiling above where the resonators would have been. In the King's Chamber, cracks have been found in the granite beams. At first, this was thought to be caused by an earthquake, but the damage was only found in areas of the pyramid where the flow of highly compressed, heated hydrogen occurred. The walls in the King's Chamber have been pushed out over an inch. It takes a lot of pressure to push tons of granite out that far. The Great Step outside the King's Chamber also shows extensive damage like that from an explosion, not an earthquake. Other parts of the interior also show signs of charring. When the southern shaft was discovered, it was coated with salt about an inch thick. This would happen if hydrogen was boiling and bubbling up the shaft. What caused the pyramid power plant to explode is not known, but Christopher Dunn believes it was some sort of cataclysm, not an earthquake, but maybe an asteroid impact. There's a problem with this theory, though. The ancient Egyptians kept meticulous records of everything. There is no record of an impact during this time. Dunn believes it happened thousands of years earlier. And that brings me to this thought. Skeptics will say if the ancient Egyptians used electricity, there would be documentation, even hard evidence of it. You'll see true believers point to glyphs that look like light bulbs, but I honestly think that's a stretch. There's no evidence the Egyptians worked with glass or any components used to make a light bulb. So why is there no evidence of the use of electricity in ancient Egypt, and no record of electricity being generated by the Great Pyramid? Well, because the ancient Egyptians didn't build it. There really is no debate by mainstream academics about the who, when, why, or how of the Great Pyramid. It was built by ancient Egyptians in 4500 BC as a tomb for Khufu, and that's that. But what if none of that is true? What if the ancient Egyptians didn't build the pyramid, but found it? And when they found it, it had been dormant for years, maybe thousands of years. Graham Hancock is a proponent of the Orion constellation theory. This says the Great Pyramid complex is almost a perfect match for the stars in the Orion constellation. But they don't line up to where Orion is today. They line up with where Orion was in the sky 13,500 years ago. We've discussed how the builders were obsessed with equinoxes. The Sphinx faces due east, and on the vernal equinox, the constellation that rose due east 13,500 years ago was Leo. Now, I'll concede the astronomical evidence could be a coincidence, but there is hard evidence that these structures are older than originally thought. You can't carbon date limestone, but there are clues that the pyramid and the Sphinx have been there for a long, long time. Robert Schoch from Boston University believes the Sphinx and Giza complex is about 13,500 years old. Giza has been an extremely dry climate since the time of the pharaohs, but the Sphinx shows signs not only of wind and sand erosion, but also extreme water erosion. The erosion patterns around the base of the Sphinx could only occur if huge volumes of water are washing over the plateau at violent speeds. There's evidence this happened at the end of the Younger Dryas, which marked the end of the last ice age in 9700 BC. Glaciers were thought to have melted rapidly. Within a few centuries, sea levels rose 500 feet. This is fast in geologic time. But as more evidence was gathered, melting appeared to happen in a matter of decades. This would cause dramatic changes in the Earth's climate. But when recent ice core samples were studied, things got even more dramatic. There's evidence that the last ice age didn't end over centuries or decades, but ended in one single day.
If you tell your child that Santa is coming to bring them gifts, they will believe you. If you tell your child to leave a tooth underneath their pillow and that a fairy will magically leave them money, they will believe you. If you tell your child that unicorns and dragons and mermaids and ghosts exist, they will believe you. So if you call them slow or clumsy or mean or dumb, they will believe you. So make sure to tell them that they are brilliant and brave and capable and kind, because they will believe that too.
And Baalbek has the largest stones that were ever quarried in human history, the largest stones that were lifted, stacked, and transported in human history, and the largest stone columns in all of classical history. And we're talking, so the trilithon stones, 3 stones, 900 tons apiece, or 800 metric tons, and they were moved a half a mile from the quarry. They were lifted and stacked approximately 30 feet off the ground. And when I say stacked, they were perfectly lined up. Let me tell you right here, and I of course have the gentleman there who I'll tell you about later highlighted just to kind of show you for perspective. Like that's someone right there, it's 5'11". Those stones that are highlighted in red are the trilithon stones. But these pictures do not do it justice because it's taken through an ultra-wide camera lens. From the top to bottom of the red highlighted stones is 14 feet. And they're 62 feet long, or 62 feet, excuse me. Like there's me. And
so crazy. It's hard to tell because of the perspective, and people need to kind of understand how a wide angle lens sort of distorts things by showing you this enormous field of view. But when you're looking at something that's 14 feet long and 62 feet long and 14 feet high, like what is the weight of that? What's the overall weight?
900 imperial tons or 800 metric tons. And to anyone listening, a metric...
All snowflakes are an illusion. Technically, they're a trick. Typically, you'll see snowflakes like this, like a hexagon. To see what they really are, you just have to remove the border that you're putting there with your mind. Snowflakes are a 2D shadow of a 3D vector. Other crystals typically freeze like this. It's called a crystal lattice. But in pictures, we just rarely see it rotated up to make it look like this. Cool. What is this? Look at the snowflake really closely. Can you see it? When a water molecule encapsulates something, it resonates with the frequency of that thing. Now, this is a very small vibration, but when you freeze it, it magnifies the resolution of that frequency. When you take the energy out of something, it freezes. Water, lava, humans, you are getting a magnified freeze frame of that very small particle. This is the holographic principle. Each piece of the hologram can be used to see the whole. If we break that piece, you see the entire thing from that piece's perspective. Inside a crystal hologram are perfectly clear spots and fuzzy spots. The laser shines through the clear spots and creates interference in the fuzzy spots. It can then be magnified at any scale. So any point within the matrix of the crystal, that matrix, not that matrix, can be viewed through the magnifying glass of water when it freezes. As the water freezes, it increases in resolution. It's building a picture for you. The cube of whatever particle is in that snowflake will increase in resolution as the snowflake freezes. That one's a cube because it probably came in contact with a mineral. Beta's done some great research on this. Whatever water experiences is how it freezes. If you look at the spring water, it comes in contact with minerals, so it freezes in a crystal lattice structure. The water remembers, it reassembles the members of what it came in contact with. So you're drinking a hologram pretty much. The knowledge of all of this is thousands of years old.
Physicist named David Bohm, who's a former protege of Einstein, and a Stanford University neurophysiologist named Carl Pribram. And they worked independently. Pribram was studying memory and found that there's evidence that the brain operates holographically. And Bohm was studying subatomic physics and found that on the subatomic level, the fabric of reality seems to possess properties that are reminiscent of a hologram. So if you put those two ideas together, that our brain seems to be holographic and the universe is holographic, it suggests that maybe it's compelling evidence that the universe may be a kind of hologram, not that it's literally a hologram, but that it's a good metaphor or way of understanding the universe.
Now, when you say it's holographic, what do we mean, really?
That, in a nutshell, that reality may be more plastic and changeable like an image than a solid construct, a sort of sticks and stones world. It has a couple of other implications, one of which is that a hologram has an unusual property. If you take a piece of photographic film that has a holographic image encoded in it, that means that you cannot see the image with your naked eye. You have to reconstruct the image, you have to shine a laser through it. So if you have an image of a rose in the film, shine a laser through the rose, you'll get a three-dimensional image of the rose on the other side. You cut that film in half, shine a laser through each piece, you'll get a whole rose out of each piece, which is a very unusual property and sort of boggles the imagination at first. Cut it in 4, you get 4 roses. Cut it in 8, you get 8 roses. So if the universe is a hologram, it means, as William Blake said, that quite literally you can find the universe in a grain of sand, that every portion of the universe contains some semblance of the whole universe.
That's very profound.
Very.
It's mind-boggling, and one of the things that you point out in a footnote of your book that I would like to mention is that this doesn't apply for many of the kinds of holographic images that are popularly sold as pendants and the like that don't require laser light.
Right. Every talk I give, someone comes up and says they cut the hologram in half on their credit card and ruined it and didn't get the effect. And it only applies to those images that you cannot see with the naked eye that you have to reconstruct.
If you were to look at holographic film, it might look like ripples on a pond unless the laser light is shined through it.
Right. There's no decipherable image in the film, and it very much does look like ripples in a pond, like when you drop pebbles into a pond. There are all sorts of little circles.
They're called interference patterns.
Right. The same as when you drop two pebbles in a pond and the ripples crisscross. That is exactly what is in the film. It's the crisscrossing of the laser light that's recorded on the photographic film.
So there's the sense about a hologram that there's two levels. One is this three-dimensional image that's projected, and it can look so real that you want to reach out and touch it. And then the other level are these interference patterns.
Right. That reality in a hologram can manifest in two ways: as a concrete image, or as this sort of indecipherable blur of energy. And an analogy to this is when you're watching Johnny Carson on your television set. That's really, his image is encoded in two ways. One is as the concrete image on the TV set. One is as the blur of radio waves permeating the living room. And if the universe is a hologram of some sense, in some way, it suggests that there may be two very drastically different levels to reality, that the concrete reality we see, when we look at these chairs and at the trees and the clouds and everything like that,
our bodies
are just one way that reality manifests, and that at some deep level there's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy that is holographically interconnected, where every portion of the universe is contained in every tiny area of the universe.
The Rothschilds destroyed Tartaria. Please, let me explain. Their timeline is exactly the same as the reset. Take a look at this. If you look at the Rothschilds timeline, it's the same as the Great Reset in 1776. Look at this, guys. It's uncanny. When the Rothschilds were becoming established, it's exactly the same time as when Tartaria was on their downfall and the reset was happening. Has anyone ever looked at this? It's obvious, guys. Again, in 1776, it's the same timeline as the Rothschilds timeline. When they were coming into power, it was the same time as the Great Reset, guys, and the mud floods. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Also, this is the Rothschilds' humble abode. Look at the etheric technology on the top. I think they were a Tartarian family, and they took over, and they knew exactly what was happening, so they made a new world order. Also, the Rothschilds are connected to the Oddfellows. The Oddfellows were in charge of all the orphanages through the Reset and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Bit weird, yeah? Also, the Rothschilds funded all the wars, and the wars were only there to destroy all of the old world architecture, guys. Ain't it really adding up now? Understand? And last but not least, the Rothschilds loaned £400,000 back in 1850s. Today, that would be 4.7 billion to the Catholic Church. Come on, guys. They took it from old world to new world, can't you see? And they also destroyed all of the world fairs.
Money is debt, school makes you stupid, half of what we call medicine is drugs, and half of what we call drugs is medicine. Religion makes you ignorant of true spirituality, possession is an idea, power is a concept, and we are all God.
The Freemasons were never just builders, they were gatekeepers, archivists, hoarders of ancient truth. Inside the archives, you will not find speculations, you will find proof. History is a fabrication. Proof that civilizations more advanced than ours have risen and fallen, buried beneath layers of deception. And to ensure the truth never reaches those who are meant to forget. Secrets of architecture, sacred geometry, and energy manipulation were not just used to build temples, they were used to alter the fabric of reality itself. Buried in the archives are the real timelines, the history that has been erased. The ancient civilizations that surpassed modern technology, destroyed, covered up, and rewritten as myth. The true origin of mankind, not a random evolution, but a designed creation for a purpose we were never told.
Oh, hi there. My name's Aaron Hill, and I'm the guy that researches how many Jews there are in things. You've probably seen some of my work, most notably from when Kanye West shared my Jews in the Media spreadsheet, or more recently when the infographic I made also about Jews in the media has been going around. You know, some people's hobbies are video games, other people's hobbies are sports, and my hobby is how many Jews there are in things.
Our past has been erased. Look at this fort. How is it that this style of structure isn't just found in one country? It is found all over the globe. 37 countries spread across each continent: Europe, Africa, Japan, and the Americas. These are called star forts, and they are more than just supposed military structures. They were built by a global civilization. They are believed to be part of a vast energy grid of power plants created to harness the Earth's energy. The mainstream says that horse and buggy people created these incredibly geometrically precise structures for no other reason than it looked frightening. The angles and points look very similar to how modern power plants can channel energy flows to specific points. However, in this case, the points of the star created powerful nodes of free energy. A concept that Nikola Tesla himself is believed to have mastered using his Wardenclyffe Tower invention, and even incorporated into the design of the Eiffel Tower. But it gets even crazier. The base of the Statue of Liberty itself is an 11-pointed star fort. Could the statue also be part of the wider energy network?
At some point, you're going to have to wake up and understand that any change you want to make is on you. And all of the time, all of the energy that you're pouring into seeking validation from others, chasing their opinions and their likes, and, you know, hoping that people are going to be happy with you and you're going to win them over, all of that is a waste of your precious life.
I learned a lot about women. I think I learned exactly how the fall of man occurred in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, and Adam said one day, "Wow, Eve, here we are at one with nature, at one with God. We'll never age, we'll never die, and all our dreams come true the instant that we have them." And Eve said, "Yeah, it's just not enough, is it?"
Wow. That's not fun.
I was just waiting for more.
Well, that was kind of his point.
Oh, God.
That's kind of what he was saying.
I mean, when human neurons merge with silicon chips, the world's first living computer, CL1, is here. This isn't a sci-fi movie. It's a revolutionary breakthrough in computing history. Recently, Australian startup Cortical Labs dropped a technological bombshell at MWC 2025 in Barcelona, the unveiling of CL1, the world's first commercially available programmable biocomputer. Unlike traditional machines built from cold, rigid code, CL1 integrates 800,000 human neurons with silicon chips, creating an intelligent life form capable of self-evolution. Inside this futuristic device lies a miniature living system equipped with 30 brain-machine interfaces, enabling real-time neural connection monitoring. Incredibly, CL1 can learn to play Pong in just 5 minutes, just like a human. Even more astonishing, it consumes orders of magnitude less power than conventional AI computers, yet its learning efficiency is millions of times higher. While the human brain operates on just 20 watts, CL1 is poised to ignite an intelligence revolution at 1,000 watts. Unlike traditional AI, which relies on brute reinforce algorithms, CL1's neural network self-organizes and evolves in real time. Imagine a computer that no longer requires endless debugging by programmers, but instead learns and grows like an infant, adapting to its environment. Scientists boldly predict that synthetic biological intelligence like CL1 could revolutionize medicine, AI, and brain-machine interfaces. But CL1's ambitions don't stop there. It could become a pure incubator for neurodegenerative diseases, or even an adaptive interstellar brain capable of self-repairing during space exploration. Even the business model is revolutionary. Can't afford the $35,000 price tag? No problem. Cloud-based neuron computing lets you rent biocomputing power by the minute, as easily as ordering takeout. But beneath the excitement, a profound ethical question emerges. Do these neurons think? Do they have consciousness? Scientists assure us that CL1's neuron count is far below that of a human brain. Yet ethicists are sounding the alarm. When machines exhibit signs of life, where do we draw the line between intelligence and morality? One thing is certain. CL1 has torn a hole in the fabric of the future. From ENIAC to quantum computing, humanity has conquered computational power with silicon. But today, the fusion of carbon-based life and silicon-based technology is propelling us into an era more unimaginable than ever before. When computers begin thinking like humans, what new universe of civilization will we ignite?
This is what is wrong with Western medicine. 4 years pre-med chemistry major, 2 years PA degree, followed by 4 years of cardiology PA. 4 years to get my medical degree, followed by 4 years as a resident. During that time, I was never, not once, challenged by an instructor or an attending physician or a supervising resident to think about the root cause of an illness and how it might be correctable. This is what is wrong with our paradigm of Western medicine. Until we start thinking about what is causing illnesses and how to correct them, people are going to continue to stay sick. I strongly believe that diabetes, obesity, heart disease, dementia, depression, etc. are all reversible if you align your diet and lifestyle with millions of years of human and hominid evolution. That is how humans thrive.
Revolutionary or terrifying? Like you, the Protocone robot has a skeleton complete with 206 bones. Human-like movement is driven by more than 1,000 artificial muscles, essentially a network of hydraulic tubes that contract when fluid is pumped into them by a 500-watt pump that functions as the robot's heart. Sensors guide up to 200 degrees of joint movement, and it even sweats through microchannels to prevent overheating. Would you trust?
Headdress of hat that the Pope wears is impacted by a god named Dagon. Dagon was a god of the Philistines, and Dagon comes from the word dag, which means fish. So now we see the Pope's headdress. On the top is the Pope's mitre, but when turned, you then see he's actually wearing a fish head, the fish god Dagon, because he's representing the worship of an ancient Phoenician god. So this is why today Christians on the back of their cars, you will see, have a fish symbol. That's to denote them as Christians worshiping Jesus. No, it's a fish symbol because it's denoting Dagon, the fish god.
What if the reason we can't find the remains of the Tartarians is because we've already found them? I'm talking about the catacombs here. Like, what if catacombs like the one in Paris are actually the graves of Tartaria? People often ask, if all these resets and cataclysms took place, where are all the bodies? Well, look no further, because I think we found the answer. The Paris catacombs are the most famous, but catacombs can be found all across the world, often located beneath churches. Officially, the remains of over 6 million people are housed in the Paris catacombs. Was this perhaps the result of the extinction of the Tartarians? And why are the bones and skulls always arranged in the most occult fashion? If Tartaria was vibrating at a positive frequency, then this arrangement can only be creating the opposite of that. Interestingly, the Paris catacombs stretch for over 150 miles, making them one of the largest ossuaries in the world. Additionally, many of the skulls and bones found in the catacombs show signs of violent death, such as skull fractures and sword marks. They say catacombs were created due to a lack of space for graves, but with most of the land on Earth still uninhabited, that's not a valid excuse. This is not a fact, just a theory.
byproduct that they can't do anything with. It's a poison, so they sell it.
You allow industry to use your water supply to dispose of their hazardous waste. It was a scam from the get-go. It is a means of getting rid of fluoride. It's a disposal mechanism.
It's bizarre. Fluoridation is the worst recycling practice in the world.
Fluoride is starting to get bad press. And if that bad press continued, everyone would start connecting the dots to you and your fluoride river dumping frenzy. If that happens, you're going to be buried with expensive lawsuits. It would be the end of you. So if you want to survive this and thrive, then you got to do something drastic. You got to find a way to change the public's perception of fluoride from this toxic, poisonous chemical to something that's good for you. And this effort to rebrand fluoride into a healthy chemical would be one of the greatest propaganda efforts known to mankind. It's why today, fluoride has seeped into everything. It's in your toothpaste.
Chemical? You're gonna put some chemical in my mouth?
Tap water, table salt, bottled water.
Imagine being so stupid that somebody's out there printing money. Somebody's printing money, and on the counter, you're working for it, and then you're getting taxed because they need your taxes in order to run the government. When they could just print it, it makes no sense whatsoever. So stop working for money. Stop working for a paycheck. Start working towards a life that instills freedom and instills your ability to produce money without you having to work.
The eyes and the brain make up 2% of the body weight and use 25% of the food intake. So 25% of what we eat is needed in this metabolic area, and that's why what we eat has such a strong effect on our eyesight and vision. When I started to study functional medicine, I could see the relationship in this eye-brain health, how the gut and the eyes and the brain come together.
If I told you I had something right here that would solve all those problems, right here in this little bottle of Doc Willard's Wonder Water, you'd probably say that's the same kind of talk I heard from that snake oil salesman we ran out of town. Well, if you went out to Rapid City, South Dakota, you'd find a lot of folks who swear by something they say will do all those things. The wondrous water of Dr. John Wesley Willard.
What we found was a vat of hot brew being stirred up out back in a truck repair shop. And watching over it was Doc Willard, who is not a wizard, but a professor emeritus of chemistry at the South Dakota School of Mines. Chauncey Taylor used it on a 2nd and 3rd degree burn. Ranchers give it to cattle to keep them healthy. Farmers say it makes wheat grow better. A quail breeder says it helps his birds grow faster and fatter.
People can't comprehend that this could be possible, and they're skeptics. And I suppose I would have been the same way if I hadn't spent the past 10 years of my life living and sleeping with this water.
Little liquid road salt, that's what melts snow and rots your car, and sodium silicate, and magnesium sulfate, and sulfated castor oil.
The elite's final plan, in short. Read the elite's own documents and declarations. Reduce humanity to zero by military force and at most have 500,000 people worldwide in captivity for all future. Just read the Georgia Guidestones. The number varies, yes, most of the elite do not want any people left at all, but the 500 million that is mentioned on the Georgia Guidestones is far too high, possibly not to offend too many from within.